Yeah, so Hare Krishna. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. My talk today will be on cosmology, creation origins. And the idea behind this was that I wanted to sort of, sure, I wanted to help the devotees understand a little bit more about the creation narratives from the point of view of science, from the point of view of the Bhagavatam, and to see how they relate to each other. It seems that most of us, have not gone well into these two, and so there's sort of like, well, maybe these two are completely apart. We should reject one or completely reject the other. So I want to see how they actually, help us see the universe in different ways. Hopefully this will be of some help to you. So let us begin with modern cosmology. So has anybody heard of the Big Bang Theory? Okay, very good. So it is the idea that, the universe started as an infinitesimal point of infinite energy. And then it just expanded from there up to the size that we have today. The person who did this, who allowed for the machinery for this to come was Albert Einstein, with his general theory of relativity, where he talks about space-time being deformed. So then you have expansion and contraction and all that. But it might surprise some people that who it was that actually came up with the theory of the Big Bang. It's Monseigneur Georges Lemaitre, who was a Catholic priest from Belgium. He was the one who talked about this egg. And when he first proposed it, nobody liked it. None of the scientists liked it, because they said, oh, so if there's a beginning, then you're going to start asking, who did that, right? Up to that point, they thought, well, the universe has always been the way it's been, and so, we're okay with that. But now it was like, no, the universe has a specific beginning. So now you had to ask, what happened before that beginning and all that stuff. But as I said, he was not taken very seriously until Hubble, Mr. Hubble, came along and showed with his observations of the universe that the universe was expanding. Anybody heard of the Hubble telescope? Okay, so it is named after Edwin Hubble. Now, the Big Bang has 4 pillars, basically 4 different independent lines of evidence that make the scientists say, this gives credence to our theories. One is the fact that they notice that the universe is expanding. The other one is something called the cosmic microwave background, which is sort of like the afterglow of the Big Bang that they see way, way far out there. The furthest away that we can see is this afterglow, so that is part of it. Then there's also the Big Bang theory allows us to sort of predict the abundance of certain light elements like hydrogen and helium. And it also allows us to show a little bit of how the galactic evolution distribution is in the universe nowadays. However, there are unsolved mysteries. Anybody heard of dark matter or dark energy? So these are big, big mysteries. Dark energy is the idea that, the universe is expanding, right? But what is causing that expansion? What is that energy that is causing it? They have no idea, so they just call it dark. Dark energy. Then the other thing is the dark matter, right? Well, dark matter is a different concept, even though they're both dark. Dark matter is the idea that have you ever been around in a kirtan and held to somebody and just gone around? Now, what do you feel at that moment as you're going around like this? A force that is like pulling you apart, right? Well, when galaxies are spiraling, you know, all the matter is going around, and they're feeling the same thing. So what is keeping them together? What is keeping them from just like flying apart? Is the amount of matter inside that is keeping itself gravitationally bound, right? So that's what's keeping it. Now, what scientists have done is they've looked at the amount of matter that there are on these in these galaxies, and they just say there is not enough matter. There's just isn't enough matter to keep these galaxies from flying apart. So they just postulate there must be some matter there, but it must be of a very different type, something that we've never seen before, like all the 118 plus elements and keeps going. All those elements, it's nothing like that. It's something totally different. So they call it dark matter. Everything that we know about chemistry, physics, and all that stuff, that is here in the 4%, 5% of the content of the universe. The rest is dark matter and dark energy. So it's a big push right now in the field of science, like finding out what is that dark matter and dark energy. And the Big Bang is not helping. No, black holes is when space-time just becomes, like, you know, goes into a singularity, and things go into it. As I said, this dark matter is like all over the universe, and we have no idea what it is. Now, the Big Bang theory is not perfect. It has problems, like every theory. They are very technical, so I'm not going to go very much into them. They're called the horizon problem, the flatness problem, and the magnetic monopoles. I'm just going to focus in on one of them because it deals with the history of the universe, and we'll see that coming up later on in our talk. This is a vignette showing how trying to describe the size of the Big Bang. What is the future of the universe? So here is one of the, this came out, anyway. The flatness problem, which is one of the three problems of the Big Bang, is the fact that we see the universe, and there are three ways in which it can go into the future, depending on the geometry. We want to know what is going to be the future of the universe. So depending on the geometry of the universe, if it's flat, it's just things are just going to start drifting off further and further as it expands, and then at some point in time, the galaxies are going to be so far apart that everything is going to just die down in a slow, cold death. Now, if the curvature is such that it's convex, right, then it will do it even faster. It will just, you know, things will just go away like even faster. But if it's concave, then it will come to a certain point of expansion and then go back into a big crunch. So there's like very different scenarios, and it all depends on what is the geometry of the universe. Now, what do you think? And it all depends on this parameter, which is the density, the critical density. If it's 1, it's flat. If it's less than 1, it's concave. And if it's more than 1, it's convex. What do you think, after looking at different measurements of the universe, where do you think we are at? Concave, says one. Okay, you have to totally, you know, be outside. Well, according to scientists, it's somewhere near 1. They don't know exactly if it's less than 1, a little bit less than 1, or a little bit more than 1, or exactly 1. It's somewhere around there. And this is driving them crazy because it's like, wait, how could it be like, you know, it's like so close to 1, you know, like, why would, of all possible values, you know, if you have something that goes into like, why would it be that specific value? So the This is called the flatness problem. And it deals then with the future of the universe. So to try to answer that, they've come up with another theory called inflation theory. This is not inflation as in monetary inflation, by the way. This is the idea that the universe expanded exponentially, like super fast, in the first fractions of the lifetime of the universe. And then it kept on going at a slower pace. So this explains the large-scale structure of the universe, and it solves the horizon problem with the flatness and magnetic monopole problem. So it's perfect, but it has problems of its own, obviously. So it requires also that there are these specific initial conditions of its own. So it's like, well, you just replaced one specific, problem with another specific problem. Then we don't know what this inflation field corresponds to. What are the particles that it should go with? And it seems like it's a theory in which you can just like put anything in it for it to work, and it will work. So it's like, because of that, Scientific American and other magazines have talked to the general populace and said that there are big gaps in this Big Bang theory. Now let's go a little bit beyond the Big Bang. Where are the physicists going into to try to solve some of these problems? Well, there's the idea of the oscillating universe. The idea that the universe doesn't just have one beginning and one end, but that it keeps going. It goes from Big Bang to Big Crunch, Big Bang to Big Crunch. So it's called the oscillating universe. Then they also talk about, well, our universe could be just like one of many different universes that are around. And the idea behind this is that, well, maybe our universe is just like perfect with all the right conditions for life and things like that, because there are just so many with all the different other parameters, and ours just happens to have the right conditions. And because it does, then there are people like us that came about to ask these questions. So that's the idea. That is just statistics. And well, here's a vignette. What if your life is boring in all the parallel universes? Then you have philosophical questions. The first question is cosmology actually a science? Right? Up to the 1800s, it was actually not considered a science, but it was a branch of philosophy. It wasn't until the 1900s with all the observations of the heavens, with very precise measurements, that it started becoming a science. But it's a good question to ask, is it a science? Because we can ask, are the laws of nature constant? We are inferring things way into the past, thinking that the laws of physics, and the laws of nature have been constant. So are the laws of nature constant to say that? Then, is what we see right now, what we're able to see with our telescopes, is that a good sample of the universe? Could it be that maybe there's a part of the universe that we're not seeing, that is totally different, and that we should revise all of our theories? And then the third one is the universe testable? Science is known to, because, the empiric method, right? Is it testable? Can I get multiple samples of universes and, look at the, how they, the Big Bang does different things? And can I, tweak each one to like, well, if I tweaked it, then the Big Bang came out like this, and if I tweaked it, it came out like that. None of these things have. Here's a vignette, Big Bang Theory. In the beginning, there was nothing, which exploded. So, a few more philosophical questions. We just talked about how the universe expands, right? Well, if it's expanding, what is it expanding into? If the universe comprises all of time, matter, and space, then what is this thing outside? What are you expanding into, right? That's a good question. So depending on who you ask, you're going to get different answers. If you ask some physicists, they'll tell you like don't ask, your question doesn't make sense. They'll say that it's like asking, what is north of the North Pole? It's like, well, it doesn't make sense. Then another explanation that they can give you, is like, well, it's expanding into the multiverse. So our universe is just one of the many universes, and it's expanding onto this multiverse. Then the other question is, what happened or what caused the Big Bang? Here's a vignette. 13.8 billion years ago, a few seconds before the creation of our universe. There are these two scientists there. All set up, let's fire this Large Hadron Particle Collider and see what happens. So again, depending on who you ask, they'll give you different answers. One answer as to what happened before, what caused the Big Bang is, don't ask, your question doesn't make sense. Same as the before. Examples of this are like the Hartle-Hawking proposal, where they, Professor Hawking and Professor Hartle try to say that, well, as you go back in time, you don't go back into just a singularity, but what happens is that space and time start mixing with each other in such a way that here you just have space. Here you had space and time, but as you go here back, this just becomes space. And so there's no question about beginning because there was no time. This sounds a little bit like Buddhism, doesn't it? Do away with the question. What time? There was no time. Yes, word jugglery. Other people will say, well, it's the laws of nature, the quantum vacuum that created everything. In this quantum vacuum, at some point, boom, there was this mini universe that just expanded, to the great sizes. Just like right now we see that in the quantum vacuum, sometimes we have particles and antiparticles popping in and popping out of existence. Well, maybe a whole universe popped out of existence and it just grew to large sizes. And another answer that they can give you is that, well, the parallel universes have been existing all along. So our universe has just been one of those that have popped into existence and it keeps on going forever. And it will, it may die down at some point and others are being created all the time, so it doesn't really matter. Now, some of you have been asking probably, well, can you just put God in here? Say that, God, solved all these problems. That is the cosmological argument. What if God created the Big Bang? Right? The problem with that, with the responses that some people give is that, well, God just pushes back the question. Well, if God created the Big Bang, then who created God? And you go like, well, nobody, because he's God. And it's like, well, it's like an unsatisfactory for most scientists. Like, you just gave me a dead end to this question. It's like, at least with the other one, I can still, do some science. And then the other argument that can be given with God is that, how can the parameters of the universe be so finely tuned to produce life? That's one of the theological questions. If it seems like everything is so perfect for life, that is called the teleological argument. How could it be? So the responses to that is the multiverse. Our universe just happens to have all the right conditions for life. Most of the other universes just, are dead, don't, live short, whatever. The laws are such that there's no life in them. We just happen to have ours in here. So that is sort of, like where we're at in terms of the science. Let's turn a little bit into Puranic cosmology, right? First of all, let's see what Professor Carl Sagan said. This is taken from one of his videos that he made. It was a very famous series of lectures that, videos that he made. Anybody seen some of these? You have? Very good. Yeah, they're kind of old now, but no, he left his body, some time ago. But this was so he became famous because of these videos. Let me see. Okay. Carl Sagan, yes. Okay, I'll have to play it out from outside here. So. There's no sound. Let's see. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay.
Religion is the only one of the world's.
Let's try that. Whoa. Hare Krishna. Okay, this is going to give sound.
It's dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself, Hindu religion is the only one of the world's great faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense, indeed an infinite, number of deaths and rebirths. It is the only religion in which the timescales correspond, no doubt by accident, to those of modern scientific cosmology. Its cycles run from our ordinary day and night to a day and night of Brahma, 8.64 billion years long, longer than the age of the Earth or the Sun, and about half the time since the Big Bang. And there are much longer time scales still. There is the deep and appealing notion that the universe is but the dream of the God, who, after 100 Brahma years, dissolves himself into a dreamless sleep, and the universe dissolves with him. Until, after another Brahma century, he stirs, recomposes himself, and begins again to dream the great cosmic lotus dream. Meanwhile,
so Carl Sagan here is pointing out that there is something very special about this ideas that are found in the Hindu cosmology. So let's look at it a little bit more up close. Here's a little bit what he was saying. Probably you've seen this narrative before. It talks about how the lifetime of Brahma goes from creation to full devastation. That's 100 years of Brahma, but that's 311 trillion years, our time. And he was talking about how the day and night of Brahma, that's about 8 billion years, it's very close to the 13.8 billion years that they talk about is the lifetime of the universe. That's just almost like a factor of 2 away, so that's pretty close. But we have other time scales as well, and he was talking about that. But before we go any further, I wanted to talk about this different narrative that we're talking about here, because we've only looked at it a little bit when we've been, from Prabhupada. Oh yes, from Mahavishnu comes out, and in fact, thanks to Mother Narayani and along breakfast and lunches, we've been talking about this over the past couple of days. She has pointed out to me all of these places in the Bhagavatam where it's like, okay, so what is going on here? How does this fit in together? Like that. So I want to share with you, the narrative. What is the complete narrative of what goes on? So this may sound familiar to you. Mahavishnu, in his mystic slumber, exhales unlimited seed universes from the pores of his body. Right? This is found mostly is in the Brahma Samhita. Now, these universes, and this is a speculation of mine because it doesn't exactly say it, but it seems to go with the storyline, is that these universes consist of pradhana, which is the undifferentiated element that gives rise to all the other elements. And when he glances at them, he injects the time factor. Now, according to Brahma Samhita, there is Shiva is the personification of this time factor. Another in the Bhagavatam also, it talks about how the Sudarshan Chakra is also called the personification of time. But in this case, it makes sense with this narrative that it's Shiva because Durga is the personification of material nature. So when time factor and material nature come together, then this brings about the development of pradhana, right? Now, here is where the Shaivites and the Shaktas take this to be the beginning of creation. That's why they say, oh yeah, the god and the goddess come together. This is where they begin their creation story. We begin it from Mahavishnu, and actually from even before Mahavishnu, because we begin it from Krishna. And the different avatars, come down to Mahavishnu, and then from him into Shiva and Durga. Now what happens? Yes?
It's Sadashiva and Ramadevi.
No, Ramadevi is different. Ramadevi, she carries the glance of Mahavishnu over to Pradhana. But she is the consort of Mahavishnu. She's not the consort of Shiva. She's the one who carries. Well, we can discuss it later. I just want to get through with this because we have a lot of material here. Now, in the development of the elements, we have Mahavishnu, which we said, creates the pradhana and time, and when these combine, then the Mahatattva develops. What is that Mahatattva? It's this pradhana which has differentiated itself into goodness, passion, and ignorance. Well, it is said that it's mostly goodness and a little bit of passion. But then when it starts developing, when they start combining each other, then they create the material ego. Now, this Mahatattva, it is said that a part of it goes into all of us. And that is what is called the chitta. And this is where the thinking comes from the chitta. So the Mahatattva within us is what creates that what Prabhupada calls in the third canto the material consciousness. And from the material ego, when it's in goodness, passion, and ignorance, it will create different things. In goodness, it creates the mind and the devatas in charge of the different elements. In passion, it creates the intelligence, also the knowledge-acquiring senses, and the action senses. And in ignorance, it develops the subtle and gross elements and the outward organs of action. So let's look at that last one a little bit better. So from material ego, we said, in ignorance, we get sound. That's the tanmatra, the subtle element of sound. And from sound, we get the ear and space. When space and sound combine, they produce touch. Touch produces skin and air, and when air goes along with touch, form, taste, odor, like that. And we get all of the organs of action, we get all of the gross elements and all of the subtle elements. And it is said that, especially here, the earth, because it goes at the end, has all of the, it has odor, it has taste, it has form, it has touch, and it has sound. Water only has taste, form, touch, and sound. Air only has touch and sound. Space only has sound. Things like that. So this is sort of like the understanding from the third canto. Kapila Dev. Speaking about the elements, drinking water, some assembly required. Oxygen, hydrogen. Especially here, I think people like it, to assemble things, IKEA. Now, the creation according to Vaisheshika is a little bit different. According to Vaisheshika, the atoms are eternal. They're always there. They just come together and they deassemble. And so all the forms that we see, they're temporary, but the atoms are eternal. The creation? Yes. Vaisheshika? So Vaisheshika is one of the 6 types of philosophies, classical philosophies of India. So the creation and destruction is a combination of the atoms into forms and their dissolution. And the unseen, what they call the unseen, i.e. God, he directs the karma to impart movement. So God is not really, playing an important role there. He's just like the one that, gives you the karma that has to be done. But he's not like an active player in it. In it, we have that the gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, they create composites. But then there's also other elements which are associated with mental phenomena, which are manas and the self. These are all atomic. But while these, the earth, water, fire, and air, they create composites. They come together and create like bigger things. These ones, the manas and the self, they don't create composites. So you have just like one jiva, you might call it, one self that has one particle of manas. Besides that, there's these gross elements like akash, time, and space. For Vaisheshika, space and akash are different. Not so for the Srimad-Bhagavatam. What they say is that akash is what fills space, and akash is what has the tanmatra of sound. Space is just that thing there. But as I mentioned in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, that's not the case. They take and also for Sankhya. For Sankhya, also space and akash are synonyms.
So in essence, we disagree with this.
What's that?
So in essence, we disagree with this.
With some of these things, yes. Some things. What I want to show is that you cannot just say like, yes, I agree, or no, I disagree. It's like there are things that you agree with, and there are things that you disagree with. So you have to be more nuanced and when looking at these things. Yes, Mataji. Yes, that's generally what they mean by atoms, something that cannot be divided into anything smaller. That's the general idea of it. Okay, creation according to Sankhya. Sankhya has has a very similar. And here I'm talking about the classical Sankhya, from the atheistic Kapila Dev. Here, Sankhya, again, is one of the 6 traditional schools of Indian philosophy. For Sankhya, here the time does not exist, first of all. Time is something that is measured, or it comes out from the movement of the modes. So the modes move, and you look at the modes, and you say like, oh, there's time because the modes are moving. So from the movement you get the time, but it's not that time has an actual meaning in itself. Also, you see here that Mahavishnu doesn't enter, and what they talk about is that Pradhana and Purusha, they come together, right? Purusha is, Purusha, right? Is consciousness. So the two of them, create the Mahatattva. For them, also, intelligence, the Buddhi is the same as Mahatattva. They don't talk about the Chitta here. The chitta has a different connotation. Generally, when they talk about chitta, it has to do more like with mind or things that have to do with the mind. Also, they don't talk about the devatas. And instead of saying that the passion creates the knowledge-acquiring senses and the action senses, they say that, in goodness, the mind and all of these senses come together like that. So these are some of the differences that we have with Sankhya philosophy. Now, for the Bhagavatam Purana, not everything is automatic. Things are not just like going on, for the Bhagavad Purana, it's not that you just put Krishna at the very beginning and then everything is automatic. Krishna is involved constantly throughout it all. So it is said that, after all of this happened, right, Vishnu glanced, the Pradhana started creating Mahatattva and all these elements started coming about. And then you have the mind and the devatas. The devatas started going like, we can't work with each other. Have you had that problem with some devotees? Just can't work, because they have different natures. They came from different modes, and so they're like, they go to Lord Vishnu like, dear Lord, how can I do my job? It's like this. And so the Lord takes in their prayers, and He enters into each and every one of these universes as Garbhotakashaji Vishnu, and causes the cohesion of the elements with His time energy. So there are all of these pradhana universes, right, in which He glanced. They created all of these elements that are just like there, right? And then He enters into each one as Garbhotakashaji Vishnu, and He makes all of these come together in each one of these universes. Now, after the Lord enters, half of the universe is filled with water. And then the gigantic universal form creates a fetus. So the universe becomes like a fetus that will grow into the universal form. But before it begins like that, there's 1,000 celestial years before the manifestation, and in which it's just lying in the water. All the living entities lie down with Garbhotakashaji Vishnu until Brahma is born. Yes, there are different sets of demigods. Generally, we think that the demigods only come after Lord Brahma. But as I mentioned, there are these first sets of demigods. And we're talking with Mother Narayani, she was telling me, like, no, there's actually 3 sets of demigods. The ones from the devatas, that came with the mind. Then there's the other ones that I'll talk about right now, which is when the fetus starts developing and all the different demigods come about there. And then there's the third one, there's the third set, which is when Lord Brahma is born, and then he starts creating all of these extra, demigods. Yes, all of this is Bhagavatam. Yeah, this is all in the third canto. Why couldn't he see it? I don't know. Good question. He's just in one little place. The lotus, and everything is dark. So the blueprint of the universe. The fetus divided itself into 1 Jiva Shakti, 10 Prana Shaktis, and 3 Atma Shaktis. The Atma Shaktis are the senses, the devatas, and the gross organs with the sense objects. So here's the fetus developing itself. The different abodes of the demigods, they start manifesting in the body of the fetus. So it says that the mouth, becomes manifests itself, and in it, Agni enters, and then the Lord is the power of speech and things like that start being developed, and like that with all the other parts of the body. It is besides this, these faculties that we have, like sight, cognition, ahankar, and all of these things. It is said that 3 planetary systems then appeared, in the different parts of the body, and also the social orders of society. So basically, here it is setting up the whole structure of the universe in what is, like the universal body, of which the Lord is then the super soul, and Lord Brahma is like the soul of. Now we can see how the Lord, made all of these devatas actually work together. He created this body that in which everybody knew now what is their specific role. Besides that, we should say that each one of these universes is egg-like and is made up of sequential layers. Each one is 10 times bigger than the previous one, and we have that the innermost are the grosser and the outermost are subtler. So you begin with earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? Then you have false ego, mahatattva, and finally pradhana. So that's the sequence of all of them. I am not reinventing myself. I am going through the layers and revealing myself. I am on a journey, an adventure that's constantly changing shape. That was Madonna. So who knew? You can get good philosophy even from Madonna. Yes. This one?
Was Pranad was one of the rishis who was supposed to be proponents of atom philosophy. Is it the same?
Yes, this is from Canada.
Okay.
This is from the Vaisheshika Sutras.
Okay. And the slide after this. So is this because there are supposed to be two Sankhya philosophies, one having atheist view and other having proponent by Kapil.
Yes.
Okay. So which Sankhya philosophy is this? Is this the proposed by the Kapil Muni?
This one is by the classical Sankhya, that is by the atheistic Kapila Muni. Not Kapila Dev, who is the son of Devahuti. That one is the one that without all of these changes.
Okay. So if we accept these changes, then it becomes the philosophy proposed by Kapil Muni.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Lord Brahma is born. So now we're having secondary creation. Now, when Lord Brahma was born, he created the ingredients and the paraphernalia to offer sacrifice to the Lord out of the original form. And this includes all the different species of life. It includes also the hymns, everything. The Om, that started there, the Gayatri mantras, everything like that, because he needed all of these things to be able to perform sacrifice and to satisfy the Lord. After he did it, then the humans, powerful sages, etc., they also performed sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. So now we are seeing, a certain purpose in the universe. It's not just like, okay, so, we're creating something here and, well, what do I do now? Now I just enjoy it. Well, there's a specific purpose, which is to satisfy the Lord. And, if you go with the laws of nature, that means, with those that are given in the Vedas, then you're promoted to better and better conditions of life and also to spiritual advancement. You don't, and then, well, you get reactions. Now, it's important here to now talk about, Lord Brahma. He is in charge of the guna of rajas, of passion, and he is also the secondary creator. Vishnu, he is in charge of maintenance and in charge of the sattva guna, the mode of goodness, and Shiva, he's in charge of the destruction and tamas, the ignorance. Now, some Hindus, they say that the Vedic sound Om, right? That's that's where everything began. But from what we see, this in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma was the one who created Om, with which everything began. So that's something to know, that some people take Om to be the first thing. Others take the Trimurti to be the beginning. So Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma, they take the three of them to be on an equal platform, and that from them, creation, destruction, and maintenance is performed, and that they're just keep going and doing all of this thing. So that was my first introduction to Hinduism. When I asked some of my colleagues at doing PhD, I said, like, well, what does Hinduism say? They said, well, Trimurti, and they also said that there were a lot of festivals in Hinduism.
That's where you get the Panchapashana system.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we know that Lord Vishnu is not just a Guna avatar. In fact, we have three Vishnus, right? We have Karanadakshaji Vishnu, who is the one that creates all of these universes from the pores of his body. But then we also have, when he expands himself into Garbhodakashaji Vishnu, into each one of these, who creates from the navel of from his navel the lotus flower on which Lord Brahma is born, and the further third expansion, which is Kshirodakashaji Vishnu, that enters into each and every body of every living entity, and also into every atom of the universe. So the Lord is not just at the beginning of the universe. He is in the middle, at the end. He is everywhere. Now, let's go a little bit into, now that we have the narrative of the Bhagavatam, now let's see if we can combine it in some way with what we talked about in the beginning, right? So, we talked about the fact that Lord Brahma has this very long life, and that basically a day and night of Brahma is very close to the age of the universe, according to scientists. Well, what we see is that the partial devastations at the end of Brahma's day could be perceived as the big crunches in the oscillating universe, right? These could be like it's quite close, so you could say that, yeah, like these are the different days of Brahma, maybe, to some degree. There are also, we should also see that there are partial devastations at the end of the Manvantars. So a day of Brahma is divided into 14 Manvantars. Each one of them is ruled by a different Manu, right? And before that Manu and after that Manu, there's a partial devastation. They could be perceived in some way, and although this is a little bit hand-wavy, that they could be the different geological ages in some way. Sariputta Prabhu, I think he tried correlating this, but from a geologist devotee that I heard, it wasn't such a good fit, but that's something to keep in mind. And then the times of these devastations differ from the age of the universe and the geological ages. That's what I just mentioned. Ever since I was a child, I have had this instinctive urge for expansion and growth. Bruce Lee. Now, Mahavishnu creates the multiverse. We saw that Mahavishnu creates innumerable universes, and that these universes expand. Now, for us, these universes also have different sizes. We've heard that our universe is, which one? The smallest. Let's talk about that. There's an interesting story, I believe it's in the Garga Samhita, where it's a little bit different than it seems to be like from another kalpa, that the demigods go up to Lord Vishnu and ask him, like, can you please, the earth is right now filled with all of these asuras, you have to help us, right? And then Lord Vishnu says, well, yeah, the only one that can really help you right now is Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna himself. So let's go and pay him a visit. So they all get into this boat, and they start traveling through the Ganges upwards to the very top of the universe, and then they come out of the from that hole that Lord Trivikram made, and it said that there was like this massive, incredible storm and everything was like blinding light, because it's like, wow, the Brahma Jyoti. And then they sail through all of this up to this beautiful land of Goloka. And at the gates, there are these gopis that are guarding, the entrance to Goloka. Interesting, huh? It's gopis that are guards. And they ask, who are you and what is your business? And they say like, oh, we're coming from the material world, And they said, which universe? And they go like, which universe? And Lord Vishnu says like, oh, the universe with the hole in it. So that is how if somebody asks you when you go back to the spiritual world, so where do you come from? Oh, well, I come from the universe that has a hole in it, by Lord Trivikram. Right? Now, also, yeah, we can also say not only that we can say that these universes expand. First of all, that's one interesting thing. We can say that these universes expand. That's from the Brahma Samhita. So just like maybe like inflation theory or maybe like the current theory, the universes are expanding. We do not know whether that these universes kept expanding or not. But at least the idea of an initial expansion is there. So that's an interesting thing to correlate either to the current inflation or to the inflation theory. The fact that they have different sizes, and the fact that they have all limited lifetime. So then we're sort of going for this model here. That more likely it's going to be a concave geometry of the universe, right? That actually it is said that it is egg-like. So the universe will expand at some point, and then it will contract. That we could say we're going to have another devastation at some point in the future, a big crunch.
When you say we, are you putting yourself as a scientist then? Are the scientists?
No, we are saying it. Steve Odie's that these are some of the things that we could say our scriptures would allow us to predict in some way, in terms of what should go on. Yes.
I seem to be able to understand that the universe comes out of the pores in a seed-like form and then they expand.
Mm-hmm.
But when they come back, is it that Mahavishnu kind of breathes them all in? Do they shrink again, or does he just swallow them up as they are? Is that stated or is that inferred?
It is not stated explicitly how it is. It says that through his exhaling they come out, and through his inhaling they come in.
Yeah, but it's not specified.
Yeah, that much. Yeah, but she's asking: is it again to the same pores, or is it again to the mouth like that? It doesn't exactly say that.
No.
The elements retract.
Yeah, they all retract. It is said that the earth goes back to water, the water goes back to like that. They go back to Pradhana, and then everything goes like that. Now, Vishnu is the cause of all causes. So here is something that we have, and is that we don't want logically, nobody wants an infinite regression. Okay, what was the cause of this? This. What was the cause of that? That. What was the cause of that? If you keep asking that question, yeah, it's going to go on, and it's not a really satisfactory answer to always say that there's an infinite regression. So if you wanted to say, what is the cause of the universe? What is the cause of existence? At some point, you have to, cut caught it, in these explanations, right? Now, to be able to say that first cause is the one that causes all the others, it has to have a very different nature from all the others. Because if it has the same nature as the others, you would expect it to also have something below it, right? So, at least we're not completely solving what is in a completely satisfactory way, the question of, well, what came before God? Well, we're saying it's like, well, if you're asking that, then you're putting God in the same status as all the other things. And what we're saying is that it has to be different in nature. Otherwise, you're going to keep going all the way down, and you're never going to find an end to it. So if you actually want to have an initial point, a non-infinite regression, the first point has to be different, and that is what we call Krishna. Yes, he's beyond the modes. He's the controller of the modes. And actually, here it is stated that as opposed to Hawking's universe, the Vedic universe has cyclical beginnings and time, or the laws of cause and effect, right? This cause and effect begins with each multiverse. So you're asking for, what is the cause of this? Well, causes and effects that begins with the multi-universe. When you're outside of the multiverse, then that law of cause and effect is not so clear.
I don't know if it would satisfy the scientists, but from our point of view, God is the cause of all causes, and the creation happens as you've been describing it. But it's not just that there is a God who is just another element, because he has a complete existence. The spiritual world is a complete existence.
Yes.
So we're not dependent on the material world for existence as such. I think the biblical explanation is also something like God gives us the word, and then we can understand God and somehow go back to him. But this understanding that existence is actually complete before the material universe has come into being.
Yeah, he's not just bored.
No.
And said like, well, let me make the material world because I'm just like bored, in the nothingness. He has a whole, infinite amounts of pastimes in infinite universes in the spiritual sky. So that's a very good point, Monty.
Prabhu also has a question.
Yes.
As per one of the Vedic philosophies, the cause of all causes or the universes is stated as Ekoham Bahusyam. Earlier he was one before the universe, but at one point time he wanted to expand himself into the multiples.
Yes, so that is explaining about Mahavishnu. He was one, and he expanded like that. But what Mataji is saying is that even before Mahavishnu, then there's Lord Narayan and all of these others, and Krishna is over there, and he is having great times, with all his devotees.
Yeah, Mataji is stating that even without material world, whatever was existing was complete. That's true. Material world does not add anything to the existence as such. That's what she is trying to say. But the reason is Ekoham Bahusyam. Earlier he was one, and he wanted to expand himself into the multiples. Coming back to someone stated that our universe is the smallest of all, but in Krishna book and in Bhagavatam, in Brahma Vimoha and Lila, multiple Brahmas come to, when our Brahma goes to beg forgiveness to Lord Krishna, he invites all the Brahmas, and our Brahmas is multiple Brahmas, they are having different mouths.
That's Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah. And our Brahma has 4 mouths, some Brahma has 100, and other Brahmas have 1,000. But he also sees a Brahma having only one mouth. Does it mean that even there is Brahmalopa having smaller size than ours? Because the mouth of Brahma is directly proportional to the size of the Brahmalopa. Universe.
I don't remember that, but if there was one with less, you would expect it to be that. Even so, it would still be, if you're comparing 1 to 4 and 1 to, hundreds of millions, it's still, you're still small.
Yeah, that's true.
We can at that point, whether it's like, okay, so I have three more than him, but he has 100,000 more than me. Then it's one in three. Doesn't
Yeah,
make
that's
it.
true. Ours is one of the smallest, we can say. Thank you.
Good. Yes, you do have a soulmate. Unfortunately, she is comprised of antimatter and lives in a parallel universe. Quantum psychic. So here's another interesting thing, and is that the space is different from time. For physicists like Albert Einstein, he put time and space on an equal footing, and that's how he was able to talk about the deformation of space and time and all these things. But from what we see from the Srimad-Bhagavatam is that space and time appear at different stages of creation, and they have different roles. Notice that time starts over here, and Earth goes all the way from here down, right? So let me just show you in the next one. Space is here, and time was up there, right? So space is a substance. It's a gross element in Sankhya, and an active player in the evolution of the universe. Time, on the other hand, is this force that is pushing things to change, even against our will. It is seen like it is a personification Lord Shiva is a personification of this time factor, and it is what is causing us so much grief in this world, because we want things to be eternal. So this time and this space have different roles. Although I must say that in the third canto, where it talks about time from the atom, Prabhupada does say that there is a correlation between them. Now, correlation is what probably the physicists are seeing with time and space, but it should be noted that space and time here are, have very different roles. Yes?
Time came into the universe as entropy when Rudra was born. At that point. Before that, Brahma was here and the four Kumaras, but only when Rudra came, that's when entropy came as time. I am the destroyer of the worlds, So that's when it came.
Now, another thing here to take into account is, the relationship between Prakriti and Purusha, matter and spirit, or the enjoyer, or the sons of consciousness. It should be explained that both are energies of the Lord. But while matter is inert, the consciousness develops matter. At the present moment, in physics, the only thing that is said is like matter is there. And from the interactions of matter and blah, 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 then, you have consciousness. For us, consciousness is just as fundamental as, for example, the charge of the electron. Right? It has to be there. And when consciousness goes into matter, then the 6 stages of birth, growth, reproduction, duration, dwindling, and death happen. If you have, the example that is given is that if you have a baby, and this baby dies, even though the elements are still there, because consciousness is not there, even though you could preserve the body in some way, through different herbs or incubation methods, whatever, it will not grow, it will not develop, because there is no consciousness in it. Now, for Sankhya philosophy, though, Purusha is a still witness, and Prakriti is active. So they switch the roles. That's something that is also to be noted. Here's a vignette, the IRS, the birth, death, and in between, taxes. You are here. Talking about the 6 stages. Now, we have a purposeful creation. That's another thing that should be noted, and is that for us it's not like there's innumerable universes, most of which are dead. No, each one of them is filled with life, and inside the universe, everywhere you can see there is life. So we have the idea of reincarnation, 8.4 million species and their abodes, there is no waste. Everywhere in the universe, you're going to find something. There's no waste in there. And all of this is going on with the law of karma. In every universe, in the multiverse, has a purpose. And what is that purpose? To free ourselves from Maya, to basically develop loving devotional service unto the Lord, because that will completely satisfy ourselves, and to go back home, back to Godhead. Speaking about the law of karma, I believe in karma. I believe in karma. That means that I can do bad things to people all day long, and I assume they deserve it. Right? Now, acceptance of scientific advancements. How do we accept them, or how do we reject them like that? Well, science is seen as a legitimate but incomplete step towards knowing and understanding reality. Presently, it deals only with matter. We still have to have consciousness. And while much more research needs to be done before we can truly understand consciousness, when it comes to unconsciousness, not so much. For us, there is valid sources of knowledge. There is the direct empirical perception, the logical inference, and the sacred texts, right? So science is seen as a combination of this direct perception and logical inference. But to know about subjects that are beyond, it requires the help of sacred texts. So how does consciousness interact with material nature? This is a big question that any. And that's when we go to the modes of material nature, right? Prakriti is made up of a mixture of the three principal modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And this is such a powerful concept that we have in our scriptures. We have only begun to look into it. A year ago, I was doing here a seminar on a mathematical model of the gunas. So much more can be developed on that. The consciousness is filtered through the modes as light through a colored glass. So our consciousness, can be colored into goodness, passion, and ignorance. Goodness is illuminating, frees from sinful reactions, and real knowledge develops. Passion, born of unlimited desires, greed develops. And ignorance is born of ignorance of the self and develops foolishness, madness, and illusion. Everything we see is a mode of mixture of the modes. And so the modes are not just something that is mental. It's not just like mental states. They're also the makeup of our world. So this is a very interesting thing, because you have the idea that the world around us is influencing us, and we can also influence the world. And all of this can be talked within the same language of the modes. There's a constant dynamic predominance among the modes. So different times of the day, different periods of your life, different places that we are in. Everything has makes the modes fluctuate. And we have conditioning and free will. The gunas can also be translated as ropes. So it's not just like these things that are inanimate there, just like working like that. They have a specific thing, and is that they're conditioning us. As we contact the different modes, we become conditioned in our behavior. So goodness conditions to the sense of happiness and knowledge. I think that is seen especially here in Sweden, right? Passion conditions to fruitive action. That you definitely see in New York. And ignorance, darkness conditions to madness, indolence, and sleep. Well, I think everywhere. The mind and body can go on automatic, like an artificial intelligence robot. I think he's just going through the motions. We go through the motions and act and react according to certain rules. Artificial intelligence and behavioral psychology can model these rules. So we can talk about how, with this idea of the modes, you can say that every person is just like a robot. You can even say that everything You can even say how a person is going to react. So in that way, yes, we are just like robots. And with our smartphones, we're even becoming more like that. And that is what mostly the psychologists are seeing nowadays, and all of these people who are looking into consciousness. Most of the idea of consciousness out there is people don't have like a real grasp on what it is. Everybody has different ideas. Some people define consciousness as the mind. Some people define it as the intelligence. Some people define it as many different ways. So if you define it as the mind or intelligence or like that, then yes, we're nothing but AI robots. And so you have, you were forced to act according to the modes. So, we may be forced to act like the proper one, the funny one, the smart and boring one, the uncool but make you laugh one, and things like that. You're forced into all of these.
Does anyone define consciousness as the
Devotees.
Yep. It says that in the Bhagavatam.
Yeah, so, yes.
I don't know if this is interesting, but I was listening to the radio, and they have a philosophical corner where they talk about things. So they were trying to talk about consciousness, and there was a lady who's been studying artificial intelligence on a quite deep level, and then she said mostly everything can be reproduced, but not will, not desire to go in a certain direction that cannot be reproduced in an artificial intelligence or in a robot. And I thought that was interesting, because even when we're influenced, still there is like this aspect of free will. We are not exactly automations, because we can kind of step out of our paradigm and change things. They are not.
I guess that this lady was very forward thinking, because some like a lot of scientists won't even grant that.
No, I know. I was like,
It's good. I mean, these are the people we want to talk to, because it's like, okay, you've understood a little bit more about this, so we have something to offer here. That's one of the points that I want to make here, and is that we have a lot to offer in terms of our philosophy for physics, for psychology, for biology, for all of these things. There is so much. With Kalakanta Prabhu, he has been going into how we have so much to offer in terms of all of these things that like ecology, like varnashram and everything, in terms of the modes. So it's very, very interesting. Please listen to his talk. Yes.
In the movies, they always add this element when they talk about AI. They always add this element of will to it. Although they don't do it in science, but they do in the movies.
Yeah, I mean the whole idea of, well, not the whole idea. I'm generalizing here. One of the big prizes that some AI developers are going for is, can we create a self-conscious robot? And they think that, well, if I just model it well enough, at some point the complexity of it will make it go that, yes, I have feelings. I believe I exist. I'm here. That's the idea, that you just have to like go deep enough, like complex enough, and it will happen. Magic. That the red pill or the blue pill, right? We can work under Maya. That means under the direction of the modes, or under the direction of the spiritual energy. And we can decide to be instruments of love or selfish desires. Here's a quote by C.S. Lewis. There are two kinds of people: those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, "All right then, have it your way." How are we doing here? Here are two quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, 14 and 20, that tells that when one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. So he is giving us here how to get out of these modes. He's giving us, he's not telling us just, okay, you're here conditioned, but he's also giving us a way out. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their diseases, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So we have the universe, we have the 14 planetary systems, Lord Brahma coming out of Mahavishnu, the 7 layers of the universe, this universe being one among the many. But beyond this Karana ocean, there's the Viraj river, and we cross into the Brahmajyoti. That is Krishna's effulgence. Right? The living entities who have achieved spiritual perfection stop reincarnating and are able to cross that Viraj river. So what is life outside the matrix? Well, there's the Brahmajyoti. That's the first thing we see, as we heard from the as soon as you come out, there's this blinding light. Also, this is what is explained when Arjuna was traveling with Lord Krishna, right? When he was looking for the sons of the Brahmana, they went through the universe, and when they came out, it says that there was like this blinding light as soon as they came out into the Karana ocean, like that. That's the Brahmajyoti. That Brahmajyoti is the background on which everything rests. So remember how we said, like, well, what is the universe expanding into? Well, we could say the Brahmajyoti. That is what it's expanding into. That is the sustenance for everything. Yes?
Yeah, there is something before the Brahmajyoti. There's the area of complete darkness. After the Loka mountain range, there's a huge area
that's also
darkness.
within the universe, which is because the Loka mountain stops all light from going beyond that.
And there is a range before the Loka mountain of a golden land, where everything that's material, then it goes into energy at that point. So it can't expand beyond that. So it can't expand in the Brahmajyoti because of that stopping point of the golden land.
Yes, but that place is also said to be not habitable, because if you drop anything into it, because of the reflection, you never find it.
But it's also explained by acharyas that the demigods live there.
Yeah, could be so. The idea is that beyond the Loka mountain is called the Aloka Varsha, which is the place where it's just black. So Brahman is the effulgence emanating from Krishna, his impersonal, eternal, all-pervading feature, and the ultimate goal of the impersonal transcendentalist. So those who say that Aham Brahmasmi, like that, they're trying to go into Brahmajyoti. But beyond the Brahmajyoti, there are other places like Mount Kailash. This is where Sadashiva exists. And if you're a follower of Lord Shiva and have developed that desire to serve him like that, that's where you go. That's where you associate with him. But then beyond this is the spiritual planets, the Vaikuntha Lokas. And in there you have all of the different avatars of the Lord, including Lord Ram, Lord Nrsingadev, Matsya, and that. So all of these, they're unlimited. And actually this is 3/4 of creation. But the biggest planet of all, it is said, well, before we go into the biggest planet. Mm-hmm.
Is it beyond the material world? Is it eternal? Can you stay there if you want?
It's beyond the material world, yes.
So can you stay there if you're an associate of Lord Shiva?
That's. But from what I hear, still this Mount Kailash like that, because it's in between the two worlds, is not. Is for at least for the jiva soul is not a permanent place. Yeah. That's what I've heard. That you can go there and you can serve the Lord there, but it's more like a roadhouse. You don't stay there all the time. Now, this Sadashiva is a special expansion of Krishna. He is the guardian of the Vaikuntha planets. And yeah, as I said, you can attain that if you want to associate with Lord Shiva. Now, in the Vaikuntha Lokas, we have that the liberated living beings serve the Lord in Vaikuntha, mainly in awe and reverence, sharing his bodily features and opulence. But if you want service in the fullest intimacy, that will be with Krishna only, in all the 5 moods of service. And the love and sweetness obscures the opulence and awe and reverence that you find in the others. But parallel to this one, you have Navadvip, right? Navadvip is non-different from Vrindavana, and Lord Chaitanya is non-different from Krishna. There is increase in magnanimity, and the devotees serve the Lord in both places simultaneously. Yes?
On the last one, you mentioned there's 5 modes of service in intimacy, in fullest intimacy. There's actually only 4, because neutrality is not within that realm. Neutrality.
Well, it is said that there are there's the grass, and everything in Goloka is animated. So the grass, the food, everything is like that. So what I've heard also is that even in neutrality, all of the moods in general, because when they're in Goloka, they're all surcharged with some sweetness, some madhurya. So even if it's neutrality, it's not like perfect neutrality. It's neutrality with some madhurya. That's as much as I know about that. And Lord Chaitanya makes Krishna's pastimes available even to the most fallen living entities in the material world, where he imbibes the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with the full potency to create the easiest and most powerful method of spiritual elevation. So here we have gone around, we've gone through all the universe creation like that, through the different material modes, gone up to Goloka and back to the material world. A connection there so that we can go back to it. Thank you very much.
Very nicely.
Yeah. Yes, Mataji.
It's the biggest planet.
Yes.
But is it also bigger than the other planets altogether, or is it just the biggest planet?
What I've heard is that it's the biggest one, but I don't know if it in comparison to all the other ones.
Okay.
If somebody has some more information.
I have a question related to the universe that we live. That you said that there is a hole. What is this hole? Is a black hole? What is this?
It's the hole that Lord Trivikram pierced when he was growing, and from which the Ganga is flowing in from the Karana ocean. That hole.
When the scientists are looking into the universe, it seems like really, really big. Of course, in the Bhagavatam, it's also explained there are many planetary systems. Mm-hmm. It's not explained how many planets in every system. I don't think.
No, it is not explained.
No.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things. It just talks about system. One thing that could be said is that the idea that why is it so small in comparison to like the big universe like that. What I've heard Sariputta Prabhu say is that as you go to different abodes, to different places in the universe, time and space seem to be to warp a little bit like that. So it may be that, as you're like crossing, further, into the edges of the universe, the space starts behaving differently, and it starts like being like further and further out, something like that. That's a possible explanation that he offered.
Was I heard or read, I didn't go into it at all, but that there's a new theory that there's actually some kind of reflection. It might not be all those planets and galaxies one sees, but that there's some kind of that is something is reflected, so that it looks like that, but it's not really
I think that theory, has been looked at by scientists. That one and a very similar idea also, which is the fractal idea, into similarity like that. From what they found, it's not so much the case, because otherwise you would find, reflection, like the exact same thing in different parts of the universe. So it's not exactly like that. They've tried, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But it's it's good for us to be like thinking about how not whether or not this information is true or not, but how it can be true. That's good. Somebody.
You said that the Vaishnava philosophy or our Vedic philosophy about the universe can add to the scientific community, or we can help them out. If I understood you.
There are very interesting ideas, yes, within our philosophy that could prove very useful to the scientists.
But then my question is, how is that going? I mean, are they taking us seriously, and is it even possible for our worlds to coexist in the same room?
Well, that is the mission of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. We're working on that right now. We want to like go into academia and show some of these models as possible candidates, just like that, not as here's the supreme absolute truth, take it or go to one of the different hells that we have, but rather like, hey, here's an interesting proposal. What do you think about that?
And how is that going right now?
From what I've seen, at least in my experience doing the mathematical model of the gunas, people seem to take it in as well. This is a very interesting proposal. Not so much inimicality into it. Trying to publish it is more difficult. In conferences, you will find a lot of people that are very very open to these different ideas. In publishing, less. But that's just something that we have to work on.
Why is it harder in publishing?
Well, you have much stricter. Now you're dealing with what people are going to say about this journal if I publish it. It's no longer like a personal, acceptance of it, but it's like, okay, now on my shoulders, I'm also representing a whole publishing house, and what they're going to say when I accept this. So it's a little bit heavier in that sense. And there you have a lot of people that are not just this person, but a lot of others that may be inimical towards those ideas. So we have to work with what we have.
Thank you for service.
Mm-hmm.
In relation to this question about the planets, Lord Shiva answers this in the 10th canto when he fights with the Lord, and he mentions there are 7 planets in the universe. He gives a definite number of 7 planets.
Yeah, I mean there's planets depending on how you do it. Like you have 3 planetary systems. You have the 14 planetary systems. You have like the just the one universe. Like it.
When he says 7 planets, it can also mean 7 planetary systems, but there are 7. There are no more. 14 is divisions.
Again, it depends. It depends on how you're viewing it like that. I would go to the Sanskrit and see exactly what it is said in the Sanskrit, because sometimes Prabhupada will take a word to be planetary systems where it just says planet.
Loka, yeah. Loka.
Things like that.
Well,
So
Prabhupada translates as planets.
again, I would go back to the Sanskrit to see all of these things rather than to make an assertion like, yeah, there's only 7 planets. I would go to look at, well, what are all the words and all the meanings that the Sanskrit has for that. Chai. Well, yes, Mataji.
Thank you. I actually wanted to address a little further the question that Gustav was asking in the regard to how is this going. We have also invited you here in order to help that going, because by this we are spreading the word, we are educating devotees, we have our brahmacharis who go out and they meet people, they need to answer. So even there we have a possibility, if we are educated a little better, understand our philosophy. I have been studying, currently I'm taking master's degree in religion and peace and conflict, and there I have actually met various people from different religions, different interests, atheists, and my feeling was very much that they are very interested, they are actually looking for answers. So they are open to hear, they want to hear, they will not always immediately agree, but there is actually interest, and they are in search of things. So in that way, it is going. There is more and more devotees getting deeper. We have been establishing ISKCON now for many years. So many devotees are getting deeper knowledge, and we are trying to generally create these festivals to educate us together, to give each other strength. And then when we go out, when we preach in any way, in work or whatever, so that we would actually know how to answer. So I think it is going forward. With the blessings of Srila Prabhupada and all the devotees, I feel that we are going forward in that way.
In fact, for example, just recently in Wales and also in Gainesville, we held 2 workshops on evolution theory to come together as devotee scientists. So we had devotees who are, trained as biologists, as geologists, like that, to come together and start talking about, okay, what can we say, what can we understand about evolution theory? And be able to educate the devotees, and also be able to see how we can take these ideas into, the world of science. So these things are progressing and all that. And among those people, we had Dhruta Karma Prabhu, who, was talking about how, the impact that his work has also had, around the world. And we need more devotees. We need so many more devotees that are, competent in science, that say like, okay, I'm gonna, get a PhD, and do research, on certain things, whether it's archaeology, whether it's physics, chemistry, biology, whatever you want, and use those talents, in these things to be able to bring the ideas that Srila Prabhupada had in his books to the whole world. Hi. Well, thank you very much, Bruce. And tomorrow I'll be giving a talk on. It will be a report on these evolution workshops that we went on. So if you like this one, wait until tomorrow. Adi Adi.